Welcome to Digital Wave Riders, a podcast where we unveil the hidden stories of business success from entrepreneurs and innovators and how they engage in the digital landscape. This podcast is brought to you by NextWave Services, Charlotte's #1 web designer. Check them out at nextwaveservices.com. I'm your host, Brandon Cassiano. Let's delve into our next success story. Welcome, everyone, to the first episode of the Digital Wave Riders podcast. Today, I'm joined by Ryan Lee. He is the co-founder and CEO of Hireme Healthcare. Welcome to the virtual studio, Ryan.
Thank you, Brandon. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you so much for joining me today. Usually, when it's like my first time trying to work a podcast episode, I endeavor to figure out a fun little icebreaker. But you and I had a pretty fun icebreaker a few minutes ago, not before I hopped into the studio, but when we were trying to figure it out today. So let's talk about that a little bit. So Ryan, so I don't know, probably on my fault, but apparently I let you believe that I was in Nashville, which is where you are.
Yeah, well, at first I thought it was virtual, and then when we were talking about meeting at the studio, I was like, oh, it must be in Charlotte. I'm actually in Nashville. And then when you mentioned Riverside, which is the platform we're using now, there's a studio on Riverside Avenue right around the corner from me in Nashville. So I was like, oh, you are in Nashville. Okay.
And I was like, wait, no, that's not it. And yeah, of course, my luck is I mentioned Riverside, and there's a physical Riverside studio. I'm like, oh, crap. No. So thankfully, we got it all turned around, and we are good to go. Aside from some unfortunate technical issues I love enduring at the last minute, but, that's how it is. Anyway, we are here today. Ryan, so you were highly recommended to kind of try to get into the first batch of episodes with Digital Wave Riders. You are, from what I hear, a pretty awesome guy to get to know. But in regards to your role at Hireme Healthcare, talk about, I know it mentions on the website that you were raised by two entrepreneurs. So I'd love to hear, starting off, kind of what your background is in, where that your invigorations come from, and how you found yourself in a position to spearhead an entity like Hireme Healthcare.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a very non-linear career path that led me to where I am today. It started out, my initial experience was actually as an attorney. I was practicing a very interesting mix of criminal and entrepreneurial law out in Colorado. And
oh, nice.
Right around that time, I was approached by a childhood friend of mine. Our dads were actually best friends since middle school. So we've known each other beyond forever.
Yeah.
And he had a brilliant idea for a health tech startup based on his experience working for a major hospital system. At that time, I was just about to leave to go get a master's in human rights in Austria. I was shifting towards, a bit of a humanitarian career path, and taking my legal background as well as all the work I'd done with startups in a lot of various capacities. And, I'd been surrounded by healthcare and friends and family, pretty much everyone but myself. You could say that I don't have the steady hands to set a needle or anything like that. So I figured I could bring business into the healthcare space. But through all that, I landed at Hireme Healthcare and took over as CEO once we got through our ideation phase in 2021.
Now, were there any particular elements within the established kind of healthcare industry or the systems in place within healthcare that you wanted to really endeavor to address through Hireme Healthcare that kind of works at the cornerstone of what you guys do?
Definitely the aspect of hiring. And, it's not unique to healthcare that hiring is an archaic method built on resumes put into stacks, run through algorithms that block them. I'd lost out on job opportunities for not saying the right words in a resume when I was perfectly qualified. And Trey brought this idea of addressing it in the healthcare system, which is, of paramount importance for this to be figured out. So that was one of the cornerstone components of what we built out with Hireme Healthcare.
All right. So going into, Hireme Healthcare, developing the business, what did engagement for you guys look like? What was your breaking ground with the company? What was your starting kind of strategy and kind of garnering attention and kind of getting momentum going. What did you start off doing strategy wise?
So we've experimented with quite a bit. We've been bootstrapped this whole time. So not only have we experimented, but we've experimented with meager financial resources. So we've tried, we were able to get our hands on a nurse list of every licensed nurse in North Carolina. It's about 170,000 long.
Yeah.
And so we started directly marketing to that group. We started building out a social media presence, trying just all the things that you see influencers do to get picked up and get that following. Of course, we built a website, and it was rudimentary prior to us joining with NextWave, but we built what we had to, and yeah, we've really dabbled in most aspects of going to market, but just doing so on a budget.
So at what point did you decide that there needed to be an uptick in the engagement into the digital sphere? Like, was there a particular point where you're like, okay, we've done this so far, but we need to implement some kind of new stratagem, some new technique into really kind of elevating what we've done so far?
It was a reality check moment of just, the digital sphere is where everything is happening now. All of our grassroots approaches, even just, email marketing is still digital in nature, but it's relatively archaic compared to a lot of the stuff you can do now with, whether it's social media promotion, building out media and content on a web page that's more engaging. But we were seeing traffic to our website and just not seeing conversion. So we had to say there's a hole here. There's something missing, that is people are walking to the bridge and they're not crossing it. So what is it about that bridge?
Now, were there any, even though you guys are a newer entity, were there any reservations about upping that engagement, either just the avenues you were going to try or in more respect to the strategies behind using certain avenues?
Well, every reservation we have is somewhat rooted in the financial aspect. It's deciding how to use resources, and there's so many different things we can do, from geo-targeting down to these sophisticated ad campaigns through TikTok, and I guess now there's Threads out there. There's options, and we have to pick a handful of them. So we really did have to do a narrowing exercise and say what needs to be done right now and what needs to be done after we raise our next round.
There's also this one that an associate of mine showed me, and I've only put like 5 posts on it in like the last 3 months, but it's called Lemonade. It's very Instagram-esque, but I think the community there's still kind of newish, so it hasn't gotten like it's not gotten too saturated yet, but and I think that brings to my point is just like, even when delving into new avenues, you never know, even if you hop onto a new avenue, how well that actual platform may or may not take off. So what kind of investment is that really going to be in the long run?
Yeah, and is it going to be a make or break investment? Are we going to sink stuff into this that we can never get back?
Right, exactly. Now, so you eventually did hop on with NextWave Services. Part of course, what they do is they will redesign or completely from scratch design a whole website to provide you kind of that home base of a digital presence for a company. And that obviously is a process. It takes time. So when you guys were discussing with NextWave, when you guys were discussing that process, what was most important to you while you were waiting for that process to kind of fully propagate, while you were waiting for that final product to be presented to you? What were your questions? What were the things that kind of were constantly at the forefront for you as an investment?
Oh man, there was what is this migration going to look like? Is it going to be smooth? We're in the middle of running these intensive campaigns towards niche target markets, and we were like, is this going to unfold right at the worst possible time? Is there going to be any kind of issue moving it over? While we were waiting, though, we just started seeing these prototypes of our new website, and then we got into this headspace of, I don't want to send anyone to our current webpage, because it's just, now I'm looking at these relative platforms, and ours is just busted compared to what's coming next. So there was kind of that, let's see what we can hold off on while still keeping our foot on the gas.
Well, eventually you got your website. So you guys spoke to NextWave, you guys initiated the process. The new platform for you was built. It was gone through all these processes to make sure it was of a good quality, and then you launched it. So since the launch, what kind of changes have you seen in regards to how you're able to engage with your target audience, how people are able to find you? What kind of shifts has that provided for you guys?
So it's been fresh enough not to have a deep base of KPIs to measure entirely yet, but what we are seeing is, our calls to action are so much more prominent, and as we continue driving traffic, we're seeing some conversions on at least on the nursing side of our marketplace so far, and we've added some press release components, which I think is really cool, and I think
Nice, yeah.
some people have been pointing out that they've seen those. So it's been pretty cool just now knowing that if people land on our webpage, they will know what to do, and that we can have this chance of conversions. And over these, we really just got live. I think it was maybe last week, if not.
Oh wow, nice.
End of the week right before that. It was very, very recent. So we're excited to see what comes next.
So it's really, I guess, what sounds like one of your kind of main points in even deciding to get a new website was we need people who hop onto the website to have a more inherent, obvious ability for navigation. Like they need to know where to go. So I'm really excited for you guys to kind of see what that more, as you said, obvious, more explicit calls to action will help people maneuver to and find what they're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. They have no excuse to not convert anymore if we put it right in front of them.
Nice. Perfect. Now from here, obviously you're still brand new with the new platform. So you definitely to a degree want to wait for numbers to roll in, get some kind of analytics reports to kind of see how things have been shifting, but endeavoring for a more, progressive future for Hireme Healthcare and engagement. What other plans would you be considering? So outside of a website, what other tools have you already started using, or do you think you will consider using to further engage people who need to know about Hireme Healthcare?
We're looking into some pathways and some methods that were previously unknown to me, prior to diving into this world. When you enter the digital space reminds you very quickly of just how vast it is. I mentioned the social media campaigns, a social media platform like TikTok that I never thought I would be involved in. We're moving in that direction. We have a Threads. That's one of the main reasons I actually know what that is in its early days. We are considering some more sophisticated forms of advertising. One of the ones I'm most excited about is retargeting, where
oh yeah.
And geofencing as well. Geofencing is actually the one I'm most excited about. Retargeting is something that we can work into the channels we already have flowing, but the geofencing idea is, if there's a bulk of people sitting around the geolocation of a hospital at 4 a.m, unless there's some big camp out in the parking lot, that's a bunch of nurses, and that's our target audience there. And being able to advertise kind of just to that area, just at that time is, it's a little creepy that this exists, but man, if you use it for good, it's a beautiful tool.
No, I definitely get that. I was a communications manager for a nonprofit in North Carolina like four years ago. And that was part of what I had to do was kind of geofence. I used a platform called Meltwater for it. And it was kind of weird that I could like localize a whole campaign to like the smallest town over in like Nebraska. I'm like, this is great, but at the same time, low-key weird. Just like a little low-key weird.
Low-key weird. Hey, it's still less creepy than finding out when you go talk about how you're interested in a new mattress and all of a sudden all of your advertisements are for mattresses. That part creeps me out.
Yeah.
We're not doing that yet.
It kind of reminds me of those moments. I don't know if you have like oh my God, what's her name? Alexa at your house, but like,
yep.
It reminds me of those moments where like you're talking amongst your family. You're not addressing the Alexa, but there's like a little ding that comes from it. Like she was listening. What the hell?
She heard.
She knows. And that's when you find all those perfectly marketed retargeting ads popping up on your Facebook the next day. Just how it is at this point. So from here, you with everything that you guys have done to elevate at this point and kind of seeing the prospects of what it can provide for you guys in the future. You know, if a fellow business owner were to come up to you and like be considering a similar path or avenue, you know, what advice would you give them who in regards to kind of what to look for in a designer, kind of what to look for in a team that's offering to help? What kind of elements do you think other businesses should keep in mind that should be kind of at the forefront of what's being offered for a new website, for campaign management, whatever it is?
Yeah, well, first of all, one of the things I would strongly encourage is to make sure you keep shopping because some of those prices start to seem really consistent and really high, and then you find something that is actually significantly more affordable that just works because people like, I mean, that's where Next Wave came in. The price point and the quality just didn't check out compared to everything else we were looking at, and it turned out, you know, that these such a steal almost does exist. So, you know, a lot of the time, if you're doing a comp, you see three places that are all, you know, with ballpark the more or less the same price. You're like, oh, this just must be the standard cost of what I'm trying to do here. But that's not always the case.
Yeah.
So I encourage people to shop and really find someone who, you know, it's an important relationship. It's not something where you're handing an idea and a color scheme over to a graphic designer who's going to go and just make something and then you move on. I mean, it's an ongoing relationship for what you have forward with aspects of SEO that, you know, there's always going to be changes, additions, growth components of a website that, you know, you're going to want a working class partner for that.
Right.
Someone that's going to, you know, get in the trenches with you that you enjoy working with. And I think that's really important for those relationships to be a part of it. It's not just a one-off agreement.
Yeah. And it makes me really happy that that's gotten to be your experience so far. I've worked for companies in the past where the sale happens for the sake of the sale happening.
Yeah.
And that opportunity for that rapport that you mentioned kind of too often will fall through the cracks. And then suddenly you have a client who's been on for a number of months, but the delivery on what was, you know, sold is lackluster, and it's even worse if you're coming in and like they're transferred to you. You've got no idea what the lack of rapport has been like, and then it's like, God, how do I help this person who didn't get that reciprocation from the get-go? So I'm happy that for you guys have been provided that opportunity and that reciprocation from the get-go so that you have this inherent trust. And so what you're being provided is something that results from your guys' communication. So I'm really happy for you guys about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're grateful for y'all for that. I guess one other thing that I would include is just when you're looking at comps for these kinds of things as well, you know, a lot of the time you'll find websites are just cookie cutters that charge out the wazoo, and you go look and they're, you know, if all their templates look more or less the same with a different color scheme, it's worth considering that they're not going to be working with you collaboratively to execute your vision in an artistic manner as much as they're just going to say, hey, this is the popular template right now. This is what we're going to build it into, and I hope you like it. So yeah, finding, you know, versatility in case studies or whatever examples they offer and however that's done is nice to see. Okay, so y'all are just good at designing web, and you execute founders' visions rather than, you know, their own vision of what they think every website should be.
Exactly. Now, for Hireme Healthcare, is there anything that people who might be learning about Hireme Healthcare through this episode of the podcast should know about? Is there anything coming up for you guys? Anything in particular that you guys are trying to spearhead right now that you want to kind of get into people's faces as much as possible?
We're running campaigns right now, and our upcoming campaign is for telehealth. We've received a lot of feedback particularly on the nursing side, about enthusiasm about remote jobs. You know, the healthcare workforce is saying, everyone else gets to work remote, why can't I? And especially with the burnout that is being experienced across the field in healthcare, people are really looking forward to these jobs, and we're making a push to connect those candidates to those job opportunities. We have that coming up. We have a fresh new website up there for those to check out. I highly recommend that. And yeah, we're just recently accepted into Startup Health, a nationally renowned accelerator program for health tech
Awesome.
technology. So we're getting started with them, and there's going to be some stuff posted about that here in the near future. So we're really excited about a handful of things we have going on.
That's awesome. Congratulations. If you could, though, can you go a little bit into telehealth? Now, to me, that kind of sounds like someone who is associated with a particular company, but they can kind of work from anywhere. What does that look like for an entity like Hireme Healthcare?
Yeah, it's remote jobs for a lot of basics that can be done in healthcare appointments. Like there's certain aspects of acute care. You can't get an IV remotely, and I say
Right, yeah.
because they are working on VR-driven at-home technology and some crazy stuff. So right now, you still have to be there for certain methods or certain aspects of acute care, but just a lot of remote or a lot of nursing jobs can be done remotely. A lot of things, checking in on certain aspects of patient care, follow-ups for a lot of, if you have, pick your disease, a lot of the time you don't need to continue having blood work done to be properly assessed for it. And a lot of this work can just be done remotely, and nurses are flocking to that opportunity.
Well, and I'm happy that you mentioned getting an IV remotely, because I wondered about when it comes to physical assets that nurses probably need to have access to execute their responsibilities. If they are remote to a certain degree, what impact can that have on access to those assets?
Right. I mean, just one example, you can just put it in the perspective of a patient. Think about how many times, if you've ever had to go in for something like, say, you had an elevated levels of something in a blood test, for example.
Sure.
And if usually when you go back in, they're looking to see, they want to follow up with you about symptoms for stuff like that. If you have elevated liver enzymes, they're going to want to test your enzymes again. But for a lot of things that come up in routine checkups or issues that arise that you go see urgent care for example, most of the time those follow-up questions, you're not getting in a gown, you're not getting strapped up to anything. You have a brief conversation with your practitioner, and then you leave. And all that stuff can be done remotely, which just simplifies the process a lot. And most importantly, it frees up the in-person space for, as COVID taught us, there's a finite amount of time that clinicians can see patients in person. And, freeing up for the things that have to be done in person is great, just for stress to the overall system as well.
Exactly. And again, congratulations on getting involved in that accelerator. That's going to be great for you guys. I'm really happy for you guys on that front.
Thank you.
Before I let you go, though, is there anything, or how can people go about getting in contact with you? What ways can they find you?
Well, we have a great new website, and we have all of our contact information there. I'm personally very active on LinkedIn, and we have, I always invite people to connect, especially just drop a message, mention that you heard us on Next Wave's podcast, and we'll get a conversation going. And
I was going to say, plug those socials too. So LinkedIn, where else, is there any of the socials right now that Hireme Healthcare is being active on?
Yeah, Hireme Healthcare is active on Instagram. We're at Hireme Healthcare for our handle. We are not so active on Twitter, but we have Hireme Health NC as our handle there, and we're at Hireme Healthcare on TikTok. And we're so new to Threads, I have to double check, but I assume our handle is at Hireme Healthcare. I have our director of nurse relations, Denise, is in charge of that, but hopefully I'm not upsetting her by getting that one wrong. But we're available on Facebook as well. If there's a platform out there, we dabble in it, and we're building our presence up. So following us for all the exciting new things. It just happens in a blitzkrieg here of more and more things coming on. So the best way to stay abreast of all of that, follow us on any of our social medias, or better yet, follow us on all of them.
All of them. Perfect. Thank you so much for joining me today in the studio. I cannot wait to have this up, and I will let you know when everyone can get to know you through the podcast and engage Hireme Healthcare.
Thank you very much, Brandon. It's been great being on here, and I'm excited to see where episode number 2 goes.
Thanks for hanging with us on the Digital Wave Riders podcast. It was brought to you by Next Wave Services, the leading company in web design and marketing in Charlotte, North Carolina. check the episode notes to learn how you can connect with our guests or be a guest. Subscribe now or follow if you haven't already, and we'll see you on the next ride.